Esche, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jaho Jeff Giddos, Muskogee Radio, Mabu Hedgewedgekis. Good morning. Welcome to our program here on the Brew. We have a beautiful oak mulgy day, nice change from the weather, and a couple of things that we'll be looking at today. First of all, this is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the Muskogee Creek Nation's Department of Health is doing some projects here to make people more aware and actually offer some screenings and other resources that could be helpful to people who are having to deal with this particular disease. We want to thank the folks over there at the health department, where we got Megan Wilson, who was going to be scheduled for us this morning, but is getting kind of busy and we couldn't quite connect with her, but we have Victoria Lowry, who we did connect with in person. She's joined us here in the studio today, and we'll be talking about the subject. So in the second portions of our program, we've had Indigenous Day or Native American Day, call it what you will, the result is the same. We have a look at last year's celebration downtown Tulsa, and then some of the happenings on this year's, the 2018 celebration of Native American Day in Tulsa. Bigger and better this year. But until then, you're going to have to hang with us here. And let's welcome Victoria Lowry to the studios. Thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your help here.
Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be here today.
Okay, well, make sure your microphone's cranked up a bit there. Now, we have a little bit of information here, but the Breast Cancer Awareness Month is, I understand, a kind of a worldwide observance every October on an annual basis.
Yes, it's every October. They'll celebrate that, and you'll see a lot of people wearing pink. They'll have the Susan G. Komen Run. Usually that is nationwide. They've already had it in Tulsa about a week ago. They usually do a 5K to increase awareness, but also at the same time to get people moving, active, because that also decreases your risk for breast cancer, is to be active and moving, bring down your weight. So they want to make sure people are understanding this is a true disease and that it does affect people. As you know, there's about 240,000 women that are diagnosed with breast cancer. Of those, 40,000 will die. So that's the importance of screening, the mammogram screening. So we definitely want to encourage people to pay attention to those little pink banners that they see and the pink things that kind of get splashed around.
Right. Now, this is a disease that can be dealt with and hopefully conquered if caught in the early stages, hence the screening, right?
Correct. Mammogram screenings, they don't cure cancer, but they do catch them early enough so that they can treat them. The sooner you can treat it, the higher likelihood of survival for that is. So that's the importance of breast self-exams at home as well, making sure they're understanding their own breast, making sure that they know what the density is, if there's any new lumps, things like that. They'll also get another exam when they, a manual exam when they go in to see their OGYN. They'll have that as well. And of course their mammograms, depending on their family history, can start at the age of 40 if there's a history, usually mother, daughter, sister, that type of thing. They'll start those at 40. Normally it'll start at 50 otherwise.
Couple of questions here. First of all, I think I'd like to know what you thought about the attitudes towards breast cancer. Growing up, I didn't hear much about it. A health question that was a woman's problem and not to be tossed about in public very much. But now we see a huge change in people coming forward and getting tested, checking themselves, and it's being done by some really high-profile women who people will pay attention to, if not, agree with. I'm thinking like. Angelina Jolie is one who comes to mind quickly, and then there are, of course, countless others. So have we really seen that shift in thinking about it, no longer keeping it hidden, so to speak, and coming forward and trying to deal with it?
Yeah, I believe so. I know that it is becoming more prevalent in the population, and people are actually going to talk about it rather than, kind of looking at it as a shameful thing. So definitely Angelina Jolie had a double mastectomy, so both of her breasts, were removed to prevent the cancer from spreading. Another thing is that it not only occurs in women, but it does occur in men. It's rare. Usually it's only about 1%, but that is also one of the things that people kind of forget about is the 1% still can be you or your loved one.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. People never think about men having to deal with it. It's always women and radical mastectomies or something of that nature, and men don't get it. So, but you're saying no, you do.
Correct.
We do, right?
Yes. The men just need to pay attention as well. Pay attention to their pecs. Pay attention to the changes in their body as well, because those can be markers as well. So they could get a random lump as well. It doesn't just occur in the women, it can occur in the man, and they need to talk to their doctor about that, and they can kind of diagnose it from there.
Now, maybe we should take a minute or two and talk about those red flags. Are there things that people should watch out for or look for if something happens? Perhaps they could see a physician and undertake some sort of care at that point?
Usually you can be at increased risk for developing breast cancer. Usually, like if you've taken a birth control for more than 5 years, that can put you at risk for increased getting breast cancer. Also, being overweight as you get older, usually around 50, that can also be an issue. That can create, a risk factor for you that increases your risk of developing it. Genetics, something you can't really control, but kind of pay attention to. Those particular things are huge, which is why if you have a sibling that has breast cancer or something of that nature, then you need to be checked, sooner than later. High density breast, basically if you have a breast that seems more dense than someone maybe who isn't as dense, that can also increase your risk. Another thing is just being female. Unfortunately, just being female alone can increase your risk of breast cancer just because it's higher prevalence among women. Taking oral contraceptives, of course getting radiation. So maybe you've had cancer in a different area of your body, and maybe not your breast, but you've gotten radiation treatment for that. That also increases your risk. So those are some of the things that you kind of want to look at, and kind of self-evaluate yourself and talk to your doctor about those things and see, if those are things that you need to kind of look at and control.
You mentioned self-exam there. Is there a procedure or something that is recognized as being able to detect something that you should be seeing a doctor?
Usually you'll just kind of, you usually start what we call a breast self-exam. You'll usually take it in the shower. You'll do it, kind of warm water. And you'll, lift your arm, and you'll just do in little circles around your breast all the way around, starting at the nipple, going all the way back, so that you can feel your whole breast and kind of get to know your breast. That way if something has changed. Being on your menstrual cycle, does affect your breast, but if you know your breast well enough to know that that's just a normal part of your cycle and it goes away, then you're less likely to freak out whenever you have a lump.
And if you have any questions, you should probably follow up and
definitely talk to your doctor. Let them know maybe you have a new lump that isn't going away, or it's changing in size. Maybe you're having nipple discharge that maybe you're not, maybe you're breastfeeding, but you're not breastfeeding. It just kind of depends on the person. If you are breastfeeding, obviously you will have that nipple discharge. If you're not, then that's a red flag that you need to go and talk to your doctor about.
All right. Now, I understand there are several other methods of examination that are available to people, or they maybe should be looking into. Of course, we've mentioned a mammogram. That's an X-ray picture of the breast. It's not radioactive or anything to have consequences, but it's a fairly simple procedure. I understand it.
Yes, it's a simple procedure. Usually it's the one that is recommended. It's the one that usually will be used. You can get an MRI, but that's usually if the mammogram didn't see what it needs to see, but the gold standards, they say, would be the mammogram. And of course your clinical breast exam that you'll get when you go in and see your doctor, and then of course your regular self breast exams. Those are the most screening methods that you'll use, but the mammogram is the gold star.
Right, it's mammogram, folks, and not mammillogram. That's we're talking.
Correct.
Okay, I heard that on an English TV show once. Are there other methods? Of course, we mentioned the self-exam and awareness, but anything that kind of goes up the scale a little bit, a little fancier or more involved, that could perhaps even investigate even further?
Just making sure you know your family history is a big one. They have, in your genetics, you have what we call the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 gene. Those two genes, if they start changing, then that is the markers for breast cancer. So I know that kind of is a little more advanced, but that is something that they will definitely look at and kind of screen for, as well as those genetic markers. So just kind of making sure they're paying attention to those and coming in for their annual exams.
Right. Do we have any feel for numbers? I mean, you mentioned something earlier, but let's go back and revisit that question slightly. The number of women affected nationally, do you have any feel for that?
Usually it's 240,000 is the latest from the CDC, and within Native American population, you're going to look at 1 in 8 women that are diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah. Are there any factors that might affect Native women more than the rest of the population?
Of course, obesity is a big one. Hypertension, those types of things, those are all big markers for us that we kind of have to keep looking at. And of course, just being female. So unfortunately, with the indigenous population, there's not as much research specifically to that, but there is a little bit, and they're starting to kind of expand that field and look more and more into specific populations and those particular diseases and how they affect each population. But definitely, as of right now, we know 1 in 8 women are affected within indigenous populations.
No, that's too many. Here's a question that might be a little off the wall. But, is it still kind of a taboo topic for discussion among Native people? Sometimes our own tribalism prevents us from, discussing a social or a health problem because of the shame factor or whatever. Does that figure in that you've seen or you've been aware of?
All the breast cancer survivors that I know are willing to be open and honest and talk about those particular things, and they encourage women all the time to get their regular mammograms, that type of thing. So I think it's just, if you have experienced it, you don't want one of your fellow indigenous people to experience it. So I don't know that they are going about it in the same sense as maybe the non-native population, but they are definitely having that conversation.
Oh, okay. Now, let's turn to the resources available at the tribe. I understand there's a major event coming up towards the end of the month.
Yes, we have the Peak Party event. This year it's going to be hosted at the Glenpool Conference Center, and that is going to be from 1 to 3. And if you're a breast cancer survivor, they want you to come out and have lunch with them at 11, be there at 11, so they can kind of sit down and talk to you and your experience and that type of thing. Their keynote speaker this year is a breast surgeon. Her name is going to be Dr. Laura Flynn, and she's out of the Utica Park Clinic. and I encourage everybody to show up. Registration does start at 12, so if you haven't already pre-registered online, then you can show up at 12 and register the day of the event.
Is there any cost?
No, sir.
The population, the audience that you'd like to see there, the people you'd like to attend, who would that include?
Of course, we want our breast cancer survivors to show up and kind of, go through that and kind of share their stories with other people, but as well as younger women, 40 years old, but it's open to anyone, any Native American, any non-Native, whoever would like to attend and be a part of it. Maybe they want more information. It's an educational event as well, so we want people to understand, how to do certain things, more awareness about breast cancer in general.
Okay. Are there going to be any screenings available?
Not at the event, but we can talk about those screenings, where they can go to get those screenings, if they need to, maybe even a low-cost place that they can go if they're non-Native and they're not utilizing our facilities. We have some of those resources available because there will be resources out of the Susan G. Komen coming to set up a booth as well. So there will be different opportunities for education, educating the public and where they can go and how to get those screenings.
When you talk about education, sometimes it gets involved in medical terms and terminology that most of us, and I count myself in, don't understand. It's like right over the top of my head. Is it going to be presented in such a fashion that pretty much anyone could understand?
It should be, yes.
Okay. Are there program listings that people can look at if there is a certain section they want to kind of focus on? Do you have an agenda?
I know that they will have one the day of. I have not seen one being released at this time.
Okay. Now, if someone in our community here was interested or had a dreadful suspicion that they have a problem, once again, what would be the procedure that they should be looking at, and who should they contact?
If it is a patient at our clinic and they are wanting to get in, maybe they have found a lump that is changing, maybe it's doing something weird that they're not used to, they can get a hold of their doctor, go in for, hey, I found this lump. A lot of the times they will have them come in, they'll look at it, they will schedule a mammogram screening for them, and then they will get that screening results back. And from those results, they will kind of take the process of what they need to, depending on what the results are.
Okay. Is there a phone number people could call?
Just depends on what clinic they want to go to.
Okay.
So if they are in the Sapulpa Clinic, they can call, the Sapulpa Clinic and schedule that appointment with their doctor. If they are not utilizing our facilities, there is several women's clinics, including Hillcrest, that have specialized in women's care, that they can get those mammogram screenings.
Are there other nonprofits in the area that do similar things?
I do believe Planned Parenthood is one of those that utilizes mammogram screenings or helps with the cost of them. And I know the Susan G. Komen Foundation has some of their grants available for non-Native that aren't utilizing our facilities, that they utilize outside and get those taken care of within their doctor's offices. Okay,
in the last minute we have here, why don't you repeat the information regarding the pink party?
That's going to be at the Glenpool Conference Center. That's going to be October 30th, so the day before Halloween, and that's going to be from 1 to 3, and they can either register online or they can show up the day of from 12 to 1 and learn about breast cancer awareness.
Okay, well, fine. Thank you, Victoria Lowry. We appreciate you coming in and helping us out, saving our tails, so to speak. We appreciate it, and I hope you have a lot of interest from our public in the wonderful efforts that you all are making. So, Mado.
Inga.
Okay, we are going to take a short pause here, and we're going to be looking at the various observances of Native American Day, or Indigenous Day, as you want to deal with it. So stay with us here on Muskogee Radio, here on The Brew. Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on The Brew. This week, Monday, as a matter of fact, we saw the observance of Native American Day in the city of Tulsa. Around the country, similar celebrations have been going on with perhaps a different name. You might have heard of Indigenous Day. A lot of that activity was to say that, no, Columbus didn't discover us. We're kind of waiting for the boat, so to speak. The observances here are so important because it takes a lot of energy to bring this up and to deal with sometimes the challenges that we may have encountered in making this point of view. Some people are worthy, think it's a worthy idea. Others say, no, we shouldn't be messing with what we already got. And specifically naming Columbus Day, which is a federal holiday. So that's a day you take off from work, I guess, and go to the lake, watch football, hang out with kids, whatever else. But this has been a more important kind of observance in the last few years. And I'm so delighted to see this happening here in the state of Oklahoma, and particularly my hometown, Tulsa. It is so nice to see this kind of thing becoming part of our community there, and it's inviting the rest of our neighbors in, too. So come and celebrate our country, our country's original inhabitants, shall we say, Native American people. But this is the second year this observance has been taking place in the city of Tulsa, and we thought we would take a short look at the one that happened last year for the first time around. This was Native American Day.
Sammy Haynes, S-A-M-M-Y, last name is H-A-Y, N as in Nancy, E-S. I am chair of the Greater Tulsa Area Indian Affairs Commission.
This is Tulsa's dedication of former Columbus Day into a Native American Day. What does it mean for you and the commission, first of all?
It's a great day for local Native Americans in the Tulsa area. The city acknowledges that the historical fact what is being taught in the public school system is inaccurate, so that's why we are acknowledging Native American Day in the city of Tulsa, and kind of not really disregarding, but just acknowledging Native American Day and not really observing Columbus Day.
Now, as you are an Oklahoma native, right?
Yes.
How about Tulsa? Are you Tulsa resident?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel kind of left out or so by the city and the state because they acknowledge all this other stuff, including the land run, but you never saw too much about Indian people?
Yes, there is a kind of misconception of the establishment of Oklahoma, which began the Oklahoma Run, or the Oklahoma Land Run, which is not correctly portrayed at actually what happened. But what we can do as Native people to try and educate going forward the inaccuracies and teaching, I guess, the true story of how Oklahoma began, and in particular, how Tulsa began in its beginning as a tribal settlement, Creek tribal settlement.
Have you spoken with other Indian people about what's happening here, and did you get any feedback?
We've reached out to other cities who have experienced the same process that we're going through Native American Day. The city of Denver has recently passed a resolution, continuing the Native American Day or the Indigenous Peoples Day throughout the city. So there are cities who are coming abroad to the realization that it's best and it's proper to honor the Native peoples versus Columbus.
I've been seeing actually where some major metropolitan areas, including like Denver, Seattle, Minneapolis, and a couple of others have acknowledged this day. Are you kind of glad Tulsa caught up?
Yes, Tulsa does have a very large population of Native Americans. We're always ranked in the top 3 U.S. cities with Native Americans. But yeah, we are, I wouldn't say behind the curve, but we are, like everybody else, acknowledging there are, obviously there are government procedures that have to go forward to have a Native American Day declared. So, and those processes take quite a while sometimes. And I know that Oklahoma City is doing their best to trying to get the Indigenous Peoples Day as well. And we were lucky that we had a mayor who was very receptive to our proposal, and actually was a sponsor of the resolution. He took that to City Council. City Council unanimously approved the resolution, and again it dates back to the tribes who were here before the city became what was known as Tulsa City. The rich tribal heritage that the Creek, Osage, and the Cherokees bring to the area. And it was just fitting that council knew that it was just in the best interest of Tulsans to go ahead and proclaim November 9th as Native American Day.
Now, as chairman of the Tulsa Indian Affairs Commission, how do you see this proclamation as affecting your mission? What will you be doing?
Well, going forward, we will try and educate, try and get some information out to the public schools and try and help them kind of re-teach this part of history, how Columbus did not, in fact, discover America, how he was actually further south in South America, and that, that would be a gradual increase or acknowledgement as far as which public schools actually try and foster that same idea.
Okay, any final thoughts you'd care to add?
No, it was a day of celebration, and hoping that everybody come out and enjoy themselves and maybe learn, a few things, and just socialize and celebrate Native American Day. We deserve it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir. Principal Chief James Floyd, we're here at the proclamation of Native American Day in Tulsa, which is the heart of our country here in the state of Oklahoma. First of all, what does it mean for you to have this happen?
Well, it's a historic day, especially for Muskogee people, because this is Muskogee territory here, and 70% of the city of Tulsa is in Muskogee lands and in our boundaries. And so for the city of Tulsa to go from Columbus Day to have a celebration of Native American Day is, I think, a huge step in relationships between not just the Muskogee people, but all Native Americans in the city of Tulsa. So I think it's a very positive step, and I hope that it leads to even further engagements between Indian people and the city of Tulsa, and can hopefully heal any existing wounds and lay the groundwork for future positive interactions with the city. So I'm very excited. Let's
walk down that path for a second here now. In the past, the relationship between these two governments wasn't that warm. Tulsa thought it was, going to go on its own, but then the Creek Nation showed its presence and its economic wallop, so to speak, and Tulsa changed its tune. Now, are you glad to see it finally kind of played catch-up? Because there are other major metropolitan areas around the nation that have already made such a declaration. So it's glad to see Tulsa playing catch-up here.
I am. I think that, especially with first-term mayor, G.T. Bynum, his first year in office, to have this designation, I think kind of sets that is a priority. That Native American people are important, Muskogee people are important, and I think it's apparent in the dominance of both or all the Creek, Cherokee, and Osage nations, and how much we mean to the city of Tulsa today, not just our historic legacy, but today and in the future. So it's a very good start.
Is this event going to spark any activity, good jumping off points for your agenda?
I believe that today will be a good start in further relationships. We've met with Mayor Bynum before. He's very pleased with our presence here in the city of Tulsa, and we have been talking about what's the next steps and what we may do. Not just in any commercial development, but in the school system that he and I both see as a high priority. Make sure their education gets there and is portrayed correctly. Our interaction with maybe other schools in the Tulsa area. So, it's going to be a great start to what we will be doing in the future.
So you see it as a real positive relationship from now on then?
I do. And I know that, as you mentioned before, other cities have already begun this, but in the state of Oklahoma, I'm not sure any other cities have done this. They have the second largest city in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, as Tulsa, making this step. It shows the progress and the progressiveness of the people here.
Okay, well, I think actually Norman has, and Oklahoma City is kind of on the brink, so you want to give them a little shove over the edge and say, come on, do it?
I think this will probably influence them. I think that they see if Tulsa can do it, they should do it as well. I think it's the respectful thing to do.
Okay, any final thoughts, sir?
Well, it's a great day, weather-wise.
A lot of hard work went into this, and I want to say thank you to each and every person that had a part in this. Our very first Native American Day here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We are going to have a wonderful time here today. My name is Chuji Kingfisher. I will be your MC for this activity here today. It is a great honor for me to be here and represent my people, my tribe, Native American Oklahoma. I am of Cherokee and Kituwa descent. Glad to be here with each and every one of you, as we say in our language, Sio, Tohiju. Oh, see what the God wants. I hope everyone's all right. So if you would, please stand and remove your headgear as we come to Miss Mary Kay Harshaw Henderson. Went back to her old name there for a little bit. As she sings the Lord's Prayer, and these young ladies right here representing various nations will do the Lord's Prayer in sign language. Mary Kay, if you would, please.
Home to a population of approximately 30,000 Native Americans, and
whereas Native Americans have contributed immeasurably to our city, state, and country, distinguishing themselves as scholars, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders in all aspects of our society, and
from the American Revolution to military missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, Native Americans have served valiantly in the armed forces of the United States in proportionally greater numbers than the general population, and
whereas the lands now known as the United States of America were occupied by millions of people for thousands of years before the arrival of the first Europeans, and
whereas native peoples of this land aided in the survival of the first European settlers, and
whereas the city of Tulsa recognizes the fact that Tulsa is built upon the lands first inhabited by the Native Americans of this region, and
whereas all too often an inaccurate portrayal of history is taught in our school systems that Columbus and the Europeans were the first peoples to discover America, and
whereas an Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 in lieu of Columbus Day by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and
whereas a growing number of American cities have recognized the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day, reassigning Columbus Day as an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous heritage, contributions, and resiliency, and
whereas the city of Tulsa recognizes its Indigenous population as Native Americans who have made invaluable contributions to our community through their shared knowledge, stewardship of these lands, labor, science, technology, philosophy, arts, and deep cultural influences that have substantially shaped the character of the city of Tulsa, and
now therefore be it resolved, the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma declares that the second Monday in October as Native American Day in recognition of its Native American citizens, and calls on all Indian tribes, national and regional organizations, and all Americans to commemorate this day with appropriate programs and activities to celebrate and honor the culture, contributions, and traditions of Native Americans. Aho, thank you, City of Tulsa.
Our special guest has arrived, and so we want to give him a chance to speak as we've read our proclamation here. And so would you please make welcome at this time the Honorable Mayor G.T. Bynum. Please give him a round of applause. And so what we are doing is that many of our engagements that we have, many of the things that we have, many of our distinguished honorees, we gift them with a gift, whatever it may be. Today, we are honoring the mayor with the Pendleton as we drape it across his shoulder before we give him a chance to speak. And we want to say thank you, sir, to you and your city council for everything you have done. And so at this time, sir, if you would.
My name is James Pepper Henry. I'm Caw and Muskogee Creek, and on my Muskogee Creek side, my grandmother was a Childers. She was from Broken Arrow Tribal Town and Bird Clan, Fuswa Clan.
And I understand you serve on Tulsa's Indian Affairs Commission?
Yes, I'm one of the city commissioners for the Greater Tulsa Area Indian Affairs Commission.
I understand from what I heard today you were part of the spark that got this resolution headed for our city council. Is that right?
Well, actually, the Muskogee Creek Nation played a very big role in making this happen, getting the other tribes, especially the 5 tribes, to sign a resolution in support of this effort. And then myself and some of the other city commissioners, and Kim Teehee in particular, Cherokee Nation, helped draft the resolution that went before the city council for approval.
Okay, Is it a case of finally for Tulsa to adopt such an ordinance?
Well, it's been a long time coming, and Tulsa has one of the highest populations of native peoples of any city for its size, and it's the first major city in Oklahoma to adopt this type of resolution. I know it's been tried in Oklahoma City a couple times, and they haven't had much success there yet, but hopefully this will inspire Oklahoma City to follow suit, because there are 39 recognized tribes in Oklahoma, a huge part of the population, and our Native American people have contributed so much to the economy and to the life and culture and lifeways of Oklahoma.
Okay, finally, do you expect this declaration perhaps to give a little extra momentum to whatever agenda the commission may have?
Well, yes, and I one of the missions of the commission is to develop curriculum or work with others to develop curriculum for our school systems to teach an accurate history, especially of Native American history. And people don't always get the truth. They don't always get the full picture. People think Columbus discovered America. Well, Columbus inadvertently came across America, but there were 25 million people here when he got here. So, but I think in our school systems, people are still being taught that the Europeans were the first ones to arrive, and we all know that's not true.
Great. Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, this thing spread like mosquitoes. Now, as a former Tulsa boy, kind of wondered where our Native American people in history played a part in the development of Tulsa. It was never really acknowledged like in the schools or by the government. So now we have made that change. So what are your thoughts and thinking there?
Well, it was very important to me as mayor that we are one city that's working together to compete at a national and international level. And a big part of that is recognizing how we got here. Tulsa exists here because of our Native American founders who founded this place and built the city here originally. And today, as mayor, I want us to be recognizing all the contributions that Native Americans make to our city, and for Tulsans to realize that and see that these are things that we're going to be working on together moving forward as we continue to build our city up. So honestly, I was shocked that we didn't have this day already. But I'm really thankful that for my colleagues on the city council, when I presented this to them, it was a no-brainer that we should have this in Tulsa.
A number of other major metropolitan areas have made this declaration. So was it really time for Tulsa to kind of step up to the plate?
You know, a number of other cities around the country have done it, but we've had a number of cities, even here in Oklahoma, that have decided not to do it. And one of the things I'm proud about with Tulsa is that debate never popped up here. People wanted this to happen here. People recognize the contributions that Native Americans make here in Tulsa, and so it was a given. As soon as I presented this to the council, they said we should have done this a long time ago. Let's get it done, and we got it done in time to have it recognized this year.
Finally, Mayor Bynum, will this provide some kind of spark now for an agenda for the city of Tulsa to be working with tribal government?
As soon as I was elected, I went around and met with the chiefs of each of the 3 tribal governments that are here in Tulsa, told them that I view it as crucial that we're working together, and I'm thankful that all 3 of them and their councils have agreed that they want to have that partnership between the city and our tribes that are here. This is one way that we can recognize that partnership, but there's going to be a lot of other things moving forward that we need to be working together on, and I'm looking forward to that too.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Was the sounds of Native American Day's proclamation Monday, this Monday in Tulsa. There was no discussion of whether or not it would actually replace Columbus Day, but I think they made the declaration that it also be recognized. So if you're taking your federal holiday off, you can just say it was for Native American Day. Okay, that was Native American Day celebration in 2017 downtown Tulsa. Now, the first one was kind of put together quickly and had a program that tried to do what it could within the limited time. But for 2018, this year, they had a little more time to plan, and their plans included a parade, a lot of vendors and information booths, a lot of singing and traditional Native American music and presentations. But if you're curious about 2018, we've got that one too. It's a shorter piece, and I guarantee you won't have to listen quite as hard.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor G.T. Bynum and the entire Tulsa City Council, it is my honor and privilege to welcome you to Native American Day. As he said, 13 months ago, we made a commitment that the city of Tulsa would celebrate and recognize our Native American history, heritage, and traditions by proclaiming the second Monday of each and every October as Native American Day in the city of Tulsa. Locally, Tulsa is included within the tribal boundaries of the Cherokee, Creek, and Osage nations. Statewide, 39 federally recognized tribes make their homes right here in Oklahoma. The tribal flag of each of these native nations can be seen today behind me. We would like to thank the Tulsa Public Schools Indian Education Department for sharing the flags with us on this special occasion. Mayor Bynum could not be with us this morning. However, I do have a resolution, not a revolution, yikes, signed by the mayor that I would like to share with you at this time. A resolution establishing the second Monday in October as Native American Day and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Tulsa is home to a population of approximately 30,000 Native Americans, and whereas Native Americans have contributed immeasurably to our city, state, and country, distinguishing themselves as scholars, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders in all aspects of our society, and whereas from the American Revolution to military missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, Native Americans have served valiantly in the armed forces of the United States in proportionally greater numbers than the general population, and whereas the lands now known as the United States of America were occupied by millions of people for thousands of years before the arrival of the first Europeans, and whereas the native peoples of this land aided in the survival of the first European settlers, and whereas the city of Tulsa recognizes the fact that Tulsa is built upon lands first inhabited by the Native Americans of this region, and whereas all too often an inaccurate portrayal of history is taught in our school systems that Columbus and the Europeans were the first peoples to discover America, and whereas an Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 in lieu of Columbus Day by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Peoples in the Americas, and whereas a growing number of American cities have recognized the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day, reassigning Columbus Day as an opportunity to celebrate Indigenous heritage, contributions, and resiliency, and whereas the city of Tulsa recognizes its indigenous population as Native Americans who have made invaluable contributions to our community through shared knowledge, stewardship of these lands, labor, science, technology, philosophy, arts, and deep cultural influences that have substantially shaped the character of the city of Tulsa. And now, therefore, it is resolved by the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that the second Monday in October shall henceforth be known as Native American Day in recognition of its Native American citizens, that all Indian tribes, national and regional organizations, and all Americans are called to commemorate this day with appropriate programs and activities to celebrate and honor the culture, contribution, and traditions of Native Americans, and that an emergency exists for the preservation of public peace, health, safety, by reason whereof this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption, approval, and publication. Thank you.
We're standing here with Principal Chief James Floyd at Indigenous Day number 2 here in Tulsa. First of all, what do you think about the whole thing?
Well, I was here last year for the first one, and just looking at the crowd size at the beginning, this is much larger than last year, so it's great to see the event's going to be growing, and look forward to a successful day. Got a little bit of wind, but that's to our back, so that's good.
I just took out all the flags over there, too. The city of Tulsa, I think, has made, I'd call it a major step in declaring Indigenous Day and then following through like this. Why is it important for a city the size of Tulsa, the second largest in the state, to take time to honor its Native people?
Well, I think in the case of Tulsa and them stepping out soon, I think they were the second city in the state of Oklahoma, it really sends a message that they recognize the history of the Native people in Tulsa, in Tulsa's case with the Osage, the Cherokee, and Muskogee Creek, particularly in our case, that, this is our land. This is our side of the city of Tulsa, and having, up to 10,000 people living in the city of Tulsa, to us it's a great gesture of recognition that they have the ceremony include us along with all other tribes throughout the state. So I think they're doing a great job.
What about a message to the citizens of Tulsa? I grew up here. Native people weren't necessarily a real visible part of the cultural fabric, but those kind of things have changed. The times have changed now. Muskogee Creeks, the Cherokees, and the Osages are all making their presence known. So how far have we come, and what do you think about that present situation?
Well, I think what we're finding here in Tulsa, we're finding at other locations, is that the interest within the tribes is growing, and their interest in our history and our culture is also increasing. I think it's an opportunity for us to then take our culture, our history, and our stories with the city of Tulsa, with the Tulsa Public Schools, and begin to get that implanted in the coursework at the schools. And I think that the time is right now. I think the interest is there. We have the capability of doing that. But it's great to see that they're turning around and recognizing the fact of our presence, of our history, and our culture. Those are very important things.
Now, some of the relations have not exactly been smooth. Things like taxation and jurisdictional issues, things, how far does the Creek Nation go kind of thing. How do you think we're doing now with the Tulsa City government in a kind of an eye-to-eye relationship?
The relationship we have with the present administration is very good. We do hold frequent meetings with them. We talk about issues. We can sit down at the table and work out solutions. We're presently working with them on several matters, and they've been very supportive of us, so that's been great.
Now, things like the River Spirit Casino has really changed significantly a part of Tulsa. It's, I think, at the spearhead of growth and enterprise there. Do you see that sort of thing continuing? Are there new plans as far as working with the city?
Yes, as we, particularly with other development around River Spirit, we're talking to the city, working in relation to the city, the Tulsa County as well. So we're including all the stakeholders of the area in anything that we do at the outset, and I think that's a good step for everybody. because one, it recognizes that our ability to bring the issues to the table, our ability also to bring others to the table and be a part of the discussions early on. So again, I think it's just the timing of things is turning really to where they want to be involved with tribes, and I think there's nothing negative about that. That's all positive. And so I think in terms of economic development, they want to understand what we're doing. We want to understand what their expectations are, what obstacles they may have in their own governments, and to work with them in overcoming them so that we can all be successful.
And your relationship with Mayor Bynum?
It's pretty much, when I call, if I need to speak with him, I get to speak with him. We stay in touch. We both have our subordinate staffs working on different issues. And so he and I can talk to each other, follow up on what our staffs are working on, and making sure that the things that we need, like in terms of by the River Spirit, particularly one intersection we're working with the city on, we're hammering out the plans of the right-of-ways and things like that. And so the staff's working on that. We'll have that done soon. And then that just kind of leads into what we do with our next steps there. So the ability, again, for people to be at the table and have a voice and respect each other is very helpful.
Finally, a word to Muskogee citizens who are not here. Why is this so important?
For all citizens of the Muskogee Creek Nation, the Native American celebration here today is important because it gives us a chance to be ourselves, first of all. It gives recognition to us for who we are, and I think that's very important because it recognizes maybe some of the struggles that we've had in the past, and some of what we face now, breaks down barriers in the community and shows that we're just like everybody else, that we have we're unique in our culture and in our history, but it also shows that the city's open to allowing us to be a part of the community, and I think that's very important.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief Floyd.
Hello, Gary.
Okay, those were some of the sounds of Native American Day in downtown Tulsa. Right at the end there was the marching band from Sequoia High School over in Tahlequah. Looking really good there. Here's an interesting note. For the first time in its history, Columbus, Ohio, which was named for explorer Christopher Columbus, is not observing the federal holiday in his honor because money's too tight. City officials said they didn't have the bucks to celebrate another federal holiday, so they chose Veterans Day instead, and they will be observing that day. The decision is not related to a movement to end Columbus Day and replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day in deference to the native population. Okay, well, no Columbus Day in Columbus. All right, well, that's about it. That's all I've got time for. So we appreciate you being with me this week and saying, Mado, Mabohejitsket. You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.